Cool. Shall we do this?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go.
The Bruce Lee saying, I'm not afraid of someone that has 100,000 kicks. I'm afraid of the man that has one kick that practices 100,000 times. That's me. If you can't train harder than you trained yesterday, go home. At the same time I started the movie Kickboxer with Van Damme came out. It was enough to inspire me to want to get to Thailand.
You're going to Thailand, you're going to learn Muay Thai. You're not going holiday, you're going to the hell.
I'm sleeping on a wooden floor. There was no couches, there was no luxuries. It was just, you were there to eat, sleep and train. Seeing how hard I was working and fighting and winning, and they took me in as one of their own. Yeah, I just became one of them. No matter how hurt or how much you're winning, this doesn't change. Even when you get cut, still emotionless.
Just how many stitches have you had?
317. It was like a badge of honor.
G'day, mate.
Because giving up is worse than losing. Because then you got to live with yourself, and then you got the question marks for the rest of your career.
Let's face it, John Wayne Parr is a legend. And when I first started training Muay Thai in London in the year 2003, I started seeing this white boy in the ring with all sorts of Thai fighters at the top of their game. And I finally started asking, who is that guy? Who is that guy? And he was really the very first Westerner that was embraced by the Thais and was taught their tricks, their intellectual property, if you will. They took him in as one of their own, and he spoke Thai. He lived like the Thais. He ate like the Thais. He became Thai, and they respected him as one of their own. It's the first time this really happened in history, and you can see it in his style. And he really has the heart of a champion. He really has the warrior spirit when he goes into the ring. And I was so honored to finally get to speak with John Wayne in our studio. Him and I have been trading emails for at least a year or two, and it was just so great to get him here. And the man is so humble. And at one point I asked, how can a man be so gracious and humble and yet be such a violent killer? And you know, that is what a lot of people don't understand about fighters. And I've been very fortunate to spend a lot of time with fighters over the years. And I always used to say, the most dangerous fighters have the most gentle handshakes because they have nothing to prove outside the ring. They get it all done inside the ring. And I think that is one of the lessons we learn about John Wayne. And when you get into your golden years like me, it's interesting to see a man talk about why it's important to keep doing what he's doing in a very vicious and violent sport that's full of young guys that will come and knock your block off. So I hope you enjoy this time with John Wayne. It's a fabulous interview, and he was just so candid. He also has an incredible documentary movie that we'll put links on below. So definitely check that out. And we'll use some of the footage from that in the trailer. So I really hope you enjoyed that piece. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is John Wayne Parr, aka the Gunslinger, who is an Australian kickboxer fighting out of Boonchu Gym in Gold Coast, Queensland. You are the former 10-time world champion and were the runner-up on the television reality show, The Contender Asia, which I distinctly remember watching. Wayne, welcome to London Real.
Mate, thank you. Thank you for having me. This is amazing. This is very cool.
Yeah, my pleasure to have you here. I know we were chatting like a year and a half ago. You kind of come through London. We missed it. So I've been really wanting to have you on for a long time. You know, when I started training Thai boxing, like in kind of 02, 03, 04, 05, I was just learning about the sport, but like your name came up and you were like one of the few white guys that was talked about at the same class as some of the Thai fighters. And I was still green then, but I just remember you.
Hey.
And so thanks for being here. And also, you just had your 125th fight last week.
Yes.
You're 40 years old.
Yes.
You won.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
What does it feel like to do that?
Yeah, it's amazing. I have so much passion for the sport, and I wanted to ride the wave for as long as I can, be injury free, get in front of the crowds, and I'm addicted to the crowd, to the rush. So to be injury free and still be able to do what I do and still be able to compete with the top guys and win, it's yeah, I feel very blessed, very lucky. And
you retired a couple times.
Oh, once.
Once, 2013.
Yes.
Okay. And did you really think that was it at the time?
I think I just got stale. I run in the same run every day, doing the same pads. 25 years just exhaustion. I just needed a break, because I was got to the stage where it became a job. I lost the passion, but it was just work, and it's like, oh, the grass is greener on the other side, and maybe I'll do this or do this. And then once I had that little bit of a break, I realized going to the fights and watching my students fight and watching people scoring a knockout and seeing the enjoyment of someone winning. It's like, oh, I miss that feeling, I miss that rush. I can't sit back and watch this. I got to get back in there myself. So that drove me to get back into the gym and have a look at it from a different angle and remember why I was training and why I was fighting. And that's why I do it now. I don't do it because I have to do it. I do it because I want to do it. And I think I have more passion for my training now. So it's fun. I love it. So
you actually needed to take that time off to
yes.
kind of fall in love again with the sport.
Yes, exactly. Yes, just that little break was that realization that this is what I was put on this planet to do, was to beat people up.
Do you think a lot of people do that in their life, where they fall in love with something, they go to do it, and then after a while they forget why they're doing it?
Yes.
And then maybe they need to remove themselves in order to find out if they still love it.
Yeah, I remember being a kid, being a young teenager, and then trying to do a jumping kick on the bag, or trying to do something new, and then you'd fall over, or you'd look silly, and then you practice and practice, and then all of a sudden you mastered it, and then taking that into your adulthood, all of a sudden it's all business, and I've got to be strong, and I've got to be hard, and I've got to have, but when you take it back a step and go, well, I want to be that kid again. I want to have fun. I want to switch my legs, and I want to do something crazy, and I want to be silly, and that's when it's fun again. That's when you're pushing your boundaries, and you might fall over, but you get up, you dust yourself off, and you thought, oh, I'm going to jump higher this time. So yeah, it's and then if you can inspire other people to want to have fun, then yeah, the martial arts is such a crazy thing where everyone feeds off. If you have good excitement and good passion, other people want to be in the same room as you, and they want to train beside you, and they want to have the exactly same fun that you're having. So I want to try and spread that love of the martial arts all across the world if I can.
You just said the words silly, fun, and love. And when people look at you and look at your record and stuff, I think most people that don't know martial arts that well are like, wait a second, this guy's supposed to be the hard fighter. But you're talking about these concepts like fun and silly.
Yeah, I learned a gentleman called Sanchai, who's a really famous Thai boxer. I had all these fights, and I went back to Thailand, and I was getting ready for this fight, and I was kicking the bag, raw. And he just gave me a tap on the shoulder, and he goes, you look so stiff. Have fun. Go back to the old days of being a kid again. And then I thought, you're right. What am I? I'm trying to be this. And once I started relaxing and then started to experiment with different moves and then the enjoyment started coming through again. It's like, oh yeah, that's right, I can do this, I can do this. Yeah, and you might what you do on the bag you might not do on the ring, but at least in your head, hey, I can do that. I can take myself out of my comfort zone. I can do a jumping knee or a jumping back kick or a spinning kick and be like a Jackie Chan on the TV. Might not be effective, but at the same time, it's pretty cool when you can pull it off and show the boys and get a bit of a giggle from everyone saying, hey, because you might not use it, but at the same time they might not be able to do it either. So, but if you can do it, go, whoa, look at that. So yeah, I want to be that guy that's like, wow, I want to try and emulate him.
I think that silly test is like a good test that everybody should take. Like, if you're not comfortable being silly in what you do, you probably are at that point where you're not enjoying it anymore and you're taking it too serious. And like, I trained martial arts for a long time, and like lately, you know, I've been doing breakdancing and stuff. And I think sometimes you do martial arts long enough, and as a young man, you're like, I gotta be tough and I gotta be hard and I gotta kick the bag in this way only. And so for me, this new movement, I feel like I can kind of express myself a bit more.
Yes.
That I was felt limited a bit, I think, when I was fighting, and maybe it's just because I hadn't snapped out of it. But it should be fun, right?
Yes, I'm very lucky. I have very good pad holders where nothing's called. So they hold the pads and I'll throw a punch and they'll catch it, or I'll go punch, kick, and they'll catch, boom. So they can read my body language, but without it saying. So I create my own combinations, and knowing that my pad man's going to be there. So I like to call it, because it's a martial art, and then I believe that when I'm doing the pads, I'm creating my own blank canvas. So I want to create a masterpiece every time I'm doing the pads. If people watching, they're like, whoa, I can't. My pad is amazing. His name's Kevin Dick from New Zealand. And then I can go from left to right, the double left to triple, and then jumping, and he's like an octopus. He's got 8 limbs, he can catch everything I throw. But instead of being that same pattern, same boring routines, today I might go 1, 2, 3, and then tomorrow I go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm at 1, 2, 3, 3. And every day I'm throwing something new to try and, it might work, it might not work, but unless I throw it, I don't know if it does or not. And then the more variations I can have in my combinations, the harder it is to be predictable.
Right. And so you're painting a canvas even when you're training.
Even when I'm training.
Not even the fight. You're just playing around, doing this.
How can I maximize as much power as possible from every single limb, and to have balance, that if I can do it once, I can flow into another left leg or straight into a knee or into an elbow. And then being at a safe range as well, where I can step away and not lose my balance. So yeah, it's like trying to be the gazelle, a violent gazelle.
What do you think about this new change in a lot of fighters, where they're going after these movement coaches and movement people? Carlos Condit, Conor McGregor with Ido Portal that's been here. I know Ido, I've talked to him many times. You're an old school guy. You still run, I think, 20 kilometers a day. Yeah. You stick to the book. You're like, this is what worked in my many years in Thailand. This is what got me to be a champion 10 times. This is what I'm going to keep doing.
Yes.
What do you think, honestly, when you see guys doing lizard walks and on the rings and doing balancing on one leg? What are your thoughts?
Amazing. I think every single person is a different individual. What works for some people might not work for others. I'm like you just mentioned, I'm very old school. So what worked for Thailand, I took that system and brought it back to Australia. And I'm winning fights, so I'm not in a hurry to change because my system's working. But I see other guys doing it, and there's nothing but pure strength. I'm actually jealous. You see Conor McGregor doing the muscle ups on the rings in the park, and just using their body weight. I think that's, even if not fighting, it's very impressive. So
right, but you haven't played with anything like that.
I've dabbled, but my main concentration is, instead of spending an hour exercising something else, I'd rather spend an hour perfecting my jab, or perfecting a round kick, or the Bruce Lee saying, I'm not afraid of someone that has 100,000 kicks. I'm afraid of the man that has one kick that practices 100,000 times. So that's me. I want to make sure that when I punch, every single thing is perfected with my body movement, my legs, so I when I hit someone, if they could stay hit, it'd be much appreciated.
Stay hit. You said before, you see like a lot of the UFC training videos and stuff, and guys are flipping tires, and you're like, maybe they should be working on their jab.
Yes.
And maybe there's not enough attention really paid to the actual art of fighting.
Yes. Yeah. There's. Yeah, a lot of guys they come out and they're with MMA, for example, they're Muay Thai fighters. But then once the bell rings, you look at their skills and it's like, not quite. Yeah. Because if you put that same guy in a Muay Thai ring against a Muay Thai champion, I don't think they'd do so well. So yeah, my thing is I can, without banging the tire and without doing this, if I can perfect my jab, so I got speed, power, balance, instead of wasting my time doing other things. It's like I can't be a swimming champion unless I'm in the pool every day. So if the same as the fighting, unless I'm fighting, that's the only way I'm going to perfect my techniques.
Do you think you need to log like 10,000 hours doing a jab? Do you think you really need to put 5-10 years time into these techniques until they become perfect?
Yeah, just if you put your whole focus into everything. Yeah, if my goal is boxing, I just box. If I'm Muay Thai, I'm Muay Thaiing. I don't want to think outside. It's very, very selfish. You got to be just in that zone. So yeah.
Say stick to your knitting.
Yeah, I don't want to be a perfectionist, banging a sledgehammer on a tire. That's not what I'm doing. I'm punching people in the face. So I want to be really good at punching people in the face, not banging a tire. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I want to get into your whole history of how you started fighting, and I want to hear about Thailand and how you were accepted there as a white boy from Australia to be, to be fighting in the Lumpini arena and all that good stuff. But I'm gonna ask you a question you probably hear all the time. You're 40. You said you love that cheer of the crowd.
Yes.
Is it like the best thing in life, that kind of a cheer? And will you continue pursuing that for the next few years?
Yes. Yeah, it's my opportunity to shine in front of a crowd. I've been very fortunate to do the sport since I was 11 years old. It's a lot different to football, because football, there's so many people in the field and you have to share that. But being a fighter, it's an individual sport. So if I don't perform, I know if I fight my best my ability, and then with the social media as well, you have a good fight and you perform really well and you do some crazy stuff in the ring and you get the winner or get the knockout. You turn your phone on after a fight and the phone's going crazy. You know you've done something right. So you're not going to get the same appreciation washing dishes or laying tiles and I want a legacy as well. I want to, at the end of the day, nobody lives forever. But if I can make my legacy live beyond my living years, then I've done something right as well. I want to have people look in 50 years' time saying, that guy from Australia, John Wayne, he and even though he's not here, he still inspires me to want to be a martial artist. So that's where I want to, I want my kids proud. I want my kids proud. Grandpa and Jono.
But you're 40 years old, 125 fights, you just won. I mean, how much more of a legacy do you have to build? And aren't they already proud of you?
Yeah, but I believe it's like the ever-ending Everest. You always want to commit to climbing that summit until you've reached the peak. And it's always out of reach. You just want to be immortal if possible. There's a gentleman called Raymond Dekkers who passed away 2 years ago, gentleman from Holland. He was the first white guy to beat the Thais, and he had, I think, close to 200 fights. And yeah, his legacy is just, his legacy will never die. He showed Westerners that we could fight the Thais and win and knock them out. And he inspired a generation, and now that he's passed, hopefully I can be that next guy that's going to inspire the next generation after me. So.
And yet, as a fighter, all fighters see some fighters retire too late, and some fighters retire too early.
Yes.
And I'm sure you've seen people where you're like, okay, it's time to hang it up.
Yes.
People in the UFC and in fighting.
Yes.
And yet now you're kind of into that period where 10 years ago you didn't really have to think about it. 5 years ago, and now it's kind of like, okay, a few years, it's hard to say.
Yes.
How do you deal with that being in the moment as well?
Yeah, I still have the passion. So every morning I wake up at about 5:30, I have my coffee, and then I can't wait to put my shoes on to get out on the road for an hour. I love hitting the pads. I get such a buzz for the rest of the day once I've had my morning session, teaching classes, and then back in the afternoon to get in there again. So some mornings, because I'm very lucky, I live on the Gold Coast and it's the beach. So I run around and every single day I appreciate the view, I appreciate the waves coming in, seeing the surfers going out there as I'm going down the road, saying good morning to all my usual people. And there's no place I'd rather be than in that moment in time. There's no distractions. I just love every second of what I do in my life. So I'm very fortunate to live my dream every day. And then the thought of having to retire and to stop that routine, it really scares me. Because I'm very lucky that I make a good money from it. My family support me. They get out there, go out and train. So I have the 100% from my kids and my wife. So
which is crucial, right?
Crucial.
If you're fighting the opponent in the ring and your family, you probably know guys that are fighting their girlfriend and fighting the opponent.
Yeah,
that doesn't work out, right?
So I've got 100% support at home, and then from just my friends and family, everyone wants to see me succeed. So I don't know, it just really scares me, the idea of having to one day hag them up. And then holding pads in the gym's fun, but it's not fighting. It's not walking in front of that crowd. It's not feeling the rush of winning, of being handed the belt or handed the trophy or handed the check. So yeah, it's like, it gives me the heebie-jeebies even. I've retired once, and then I didn't like it. So this whole getting old, I don't like it at all.
Yeah, I think when you get older, I'm 45 now, you just have to come up with new tricks, that's all.
Yep.
And your body doesn't want to do this, all right, let's go do this, let's do this, watch our diet a little bit more. So yeah, you just got to come up with new tricks.
And then starting the sport at 11 years old, and now being 40, so 30 years of doing running, pads, sparring, living this lifestyle, and then not to have that anymore is very daunting.
Right. Well, if you're enjoying it that much every morning and you speak of it the way you speak of it now,
yes,
it would be crazy to stop doing what you're doing. So you got to keep doing that.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Thai boxing. I mean, why? It's not obvious that you would have gone this way, and yet it really captivated you. And you ended up moving to Thailand, and a lot of people are watching wouldn't even understand really the details of what Thai boxing is. So when you have to explain to people why you took that path in the journey, what do you tell them?
So what happened when I was very young, I think from the time I could walk, my earliest remember is watching Monkey Magic on TV. So I had this passion for martial arts. This guy had this stick and he was catching clouds, and it was just the idea of fighting multiple opponents. And then the Karate Kid came out, and I just wanted to be a martial artist. I didn't know what martial arts, I just wanted to be a fighter. And then we moved to Brisbane into the city, and there was a Taekwondo school only a few streets away, and it was the first time my parents gave me the freedom to, okay, you can walk there and make sure you come straight back after class, because it was a little bit 6:30, 7:30, a little bit dark. So I started Taekwondo, and I've got the uniform, and then I wanted to go to Korea and stand in line with everybody and do it, the katas and break boards, and I thought I was going to be a Taekwondo, hopefully one day get the Olympics. And then after about a year and a half, the Taekwondo school closed because they didn't have enough students, and I couldn't afford the rent. So there was 6 months in limbo. I was like, I want to be Taekwondo, Korea, how am I going to do this? And eventually kickboxing, they ended up moving into the same hall. I was like, kickboxing, it's not Taekwondo. I'll do this kickboxing, I'll give it a try. And then my first class is like, oh my God. It was like The Shining. It's like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Why was it amazing compared to Taekwondo?
All of a sudden we were punching,
right.
And then there's just had this whole new element where we were actually sparring people, and there was more contact and it was more vicious. And it suited me to a T. And then approximately the same time I started the movie Kickboxer with Van Damme came out, and he was this gentleman that goes to Thailand and fights the Thais, and it just opened up another. It's like now my whole focus was from Korea, now it's Thailand. And then
was that movie foreshadowing your life?
Yeah, I'd watch it 3, 4, 5 times a week for years. And then even though Van Damme was a karate guy and doing the jumpy stuff, it wasn't kickboxing, but it wasn't Thai boxing, but at the same time it was enough to inspire me to want to get to Thailand. So yeah, ended up having all these fights, had about 13 fights. Got lucky enough to be sponsored by a gentleman who's a Thai man, Richard Vell. He's got a restaurant. He's seen me fight a few times, and
you're a teenager now.
I'm a teenager.
Okay.
I'd won the 2 belts. I won the Australian title at 17, and I won a South Pacific title at 19. A really hard fight.
What made you so good at that point? If you look back and it was like, why were you winning those fights and no one else was?
I think just the want of wanting to be somebody, and just having that passion, having that drive of wanting to be a champion, wanting to stand on top of the mountain and have. And probably for girls too. I think every guy does something to try and impress women. And
is it that passion? Does that come out in the gym when you're training for weeks, or does it come out when you're in the 4th round and you want to go home and your shin hurts and your face hurts and you're like, no, yeah. I'm gonna win. Yeah, and then also back when I was a teenager too. Before I was just an annoying little boy. But then if a couple of kids from school would see me train, all of a sudden it's like, oh man, you're quite good at this. And then they'd have a newfound respect for me. I was like, all of a sudden I was a cool kid instead of being the rat bag kid. So it was a way of getting respect almost. Okay. And were you natural at it? Did it just fit your body type and fit everything?
Yeah,
okay.
that for sure. I was very lucky. I'd sparred the adults and I hold my own with the adults, and then people put me on a little bit of a pedestal because I was a little bit better than everybody else. I picked up things very fast.
Okay.
And then even when in the Taekwondo, when I was 11, I was that kid at the back, and then you see the boy at the front, and they'd count to 10 in Korean. The next kid would count to 10. It's like, oh, I want to be that guy in the front. I want to be the one that's counting in Korean. I want to lead the star jumps or the push-ups, and then slowly work my way up until I was that #1 spot. So giving myself little drives to try and be the best possible person that I could be. So yeah.
Okay. So you're 18. You got a couple belts.
Yes.
What happens next?
So I won the South Pacific title. I went to visit Richard the next day. Took the belt in, and then I was so happy. And we sat down for lunch, and he goes, "Hey, last night was crazy. It was so good. I got a question for you. Would you like to go to Thailand?" So I looked at him and said, "Oh yeah." He said, "I'll tell you what to do. If you can organise your passport, I'll do everything else. I'll organise your plane ticket, your camp, I'll do a little bit of this, I'll do that. You just got to organise your passport, but you got to promise me one thing. You got to stay 6 months. So many people go for 1 week, 2 weeks, you learn a little bit, you come home, then you forget about it. But if we go for 6 months, it'll be more ingrained in your system. Then you'll have a proper technique. If you go and you can't handle it and you come back before that 6 months, me and you are done. I'll disown you. But if you can stay 6 months, you make me the proudest man." It's like, sure, I can do that. You said you'll be sleeping on the floor, you'll be living like a dog. So I don't care. I want to be the best possible person. I'll sleep outside. All right. So got my passport, went down. Hey, my passport's right. Come on, let's go. So he dragged me to the travel agent. We sat down. 6 month open ticket, please. And then about 2 weeks later, I was on the plane. And then 19. So his sister and the family were going over. Just happened to be in the same time. So we all caught the plane together, and then they drove me to the camp, and then they said goodbye and drove off. And then as I was left by myself, and everyone was speaking Thai. And the first 3 months I was sleeping with Richard's brother. So we walk up to the room, he said, "Oh, this is our room." And there's a double bed on the floor, the mattress. He said, "Okay, we're going to be sharing that for the..." And it's like, oh, wow. And he was a big set man too. And then, so we stayed there for 3 months, and it was going okay, but I wasn't really getting the training and the fighting as much as I wanted to. It was more of a foreign area. And then luckily, one of the superstars in Bangkok, he came to Australia to fight and had a really good fight and met Richard, and Richard begged them if they'd take me into their camp. They said, "Oh, we don't take Westerners. No, Westerners we don't want to teach Westerners. They're the bad guys. We don't want to teach them our tricks. Please, please, please. He's a really good kid. You can have him for free. You can just take him." So after lots of begging and wishing, they said, oh, fine. So when they arrived back in Bangkok, they came and picked me up, took me to the camp, and then from that moment on, I was the only Westerner in that whole town. So, and a lot of people had never seen a Westerner before too, so the idea of me walking down the street, little kids would grab their parents and like, what's this?
So this is like mid-90s.
Yeah, this is 96.
And the Thais weren't teaching any Westerners?
No, there's only probably 2 camps in all of Thailand that were taking foreigners, because at that stage they didn't want to teach Westerners because they didn't want them to know their secrets. Otherwise, they were worried that in the future the Westerners would start beating the Thais.
Okay. And for people that don't know, can you just give me a brief history of Thai boxing and why it's like a national sport? It's almost a national pastime in Thailand, and it comes from a deep history, and it's very seriously taken over there.
Yeah.
And I think as a martial art, like, it changed my life. You know, when I started training jiu-jitsu in 02, Thai boxing came closely after in 03 and 04, and I became obsessed with it, and I learned about it and practiced the elbows and practiced the knees, and they would ever call me a kickboxer, but I'm a Thai boxer. And, you know, I went to Thailand and it was amazing, but I don't think people understand how it is part of the culture, right?
Yeah, back, I think it was Cambodia, I think they wanted to take over Thailand. So they had this big war, and then a lot of Thai soldiers were getting kidnapped. So there was one gentleman called Naikanam Dom. So he got kidnapped, and when for the it might have been Burma. Sorry, Burma. Yeah, Burma. They for the entertainment of the king, he'd send the soldiers out and then make them fight to their death. So that and then the king would watch. And then there's one gentleman called Naikanam Dom. He's gone out, and before the match started, he said a prayer. And he did a dance, and he asked permission from the gods to give him strength. And then he's gone out and he's won the first fight. He's killed the guy, and then they sent another guy, and he ended up killing, I think it was 9 or 10 guys in a row. And then the king was so impressed that he allowed him his freedom. He said, yeah, it blew his mind. So when he got back to Thailand and they told the story, and then he became this legend, and then they got him to teach the Thai army these Muay Thai secret techniques, and then from then on the legend grew, and then the sport grew, and then the war was over and Thailand was safe, and then from then on in it became the national sport, and then slowly they started incorporating using boxing gloves to make it safe, and they started using a ring. But
okay. And that was like 1,000 years ago?
Yeah, and this is all from one guy called Naikanam Dom. So
that's crazy. And that dance you talk about before is now the Y Crew.
The Y Crew.
Which you threw in a gun draw from the hip.
Yes.
Which is how you kind of were the Gunslinger and John Wayne Parr. For people that don't, I mean, so a lot of people will know, Westerners will know like a kickboxing fight or even an MMA fight or UFC. But when you go to Thailand, you realize that there's the ceremony is a big part of it, and that each fighter does this sacred dance, really, where they're asking for help from the gods, and sometimes they're cursing their opponents a little bit, and it's a big deal. And there's also music during the whole performance, and it's really intoxicating. My first time was in Lumpini Arena. I flew from London to Bangkok, and we got there really late, and I was like, no, we got tickets, and we went down there, and I saw it, and the music was playing, and it was just crazy to see, and these 13-year-old kids were fighting, and it was beautiful. But it's different than what most people know as, say, a boxing match, right?
Yeah, there's a live band too. So in the stadium, there's a guy with a flute, guy with cymbals, a guy banging a drum.
And they increase and slow down the tempo based on the fight? Can they dictate the tempo of the fight sometimes?
They can pick it up in the 5th round because they're trying to get more action.
Okay.
But it's like a snake charmer with the flute, and same with the fighting. You don't even realize that you're going a little bit harder because you're hypnotized by the sounds. But it's got to the stage now where Thai boxing is almost like horse racing in Bangkok. The people aren't going to the stadiums to watch classical fights. It's all about betting. So every single person is their own bookmaker. So you can stand in the crowd, and after every round, you put your hand up and you show certain signals with your fingers, which indicates different odds. And then if you're waiting, you see all the different hands. and then you make eye contact and you talk to that person. Yep, you're gonna be way across the other side of the stadium.
You can make your own book and you're in the middle of your own fight.
You're not the bookmaker, the people in the crowd.
Oh, right. So you can see how you're doing, like in round 2 and round 3.
Pretty much. And then your trainer will tell you, you're winning. So it's very crazy.
Do you like that or not like the betting?
I like it, but at the same time, the scoring's a little bit crazy because you can lose 4 rounds, then come back in the last round, have a big last round, and still win and then let's pretend you're losing quite badly. You're 10 for 1, and it looks like you're gone. Then you come back in the last round, and you might knock the guy down 2 or 3 times, and now all of a sudden the odds have changed, and now you're 5 for 1. So whereas the traditional scoring, they score the 10-must system from every round, whereas Thailand's like, they have their own system. It's very hard to understand. It's very complicated. But
so they don't score each round. They just score the end of the fight.
It's pretty much 3, 4, and 5 will tell you who's won.
Okay.
And then because you can still bet round 4, end of round 4, you can still put the money on, and then they can still turn it around. So if they did it round by round, you couldn't do that. So
so they keep it kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that was a great explanation. So all right, you change camps. This other camp takes you in, and now you've got a serious camp that's going to be maybe willing to teach you. Maybe.
No, they definitely
were. And what happened?
So Richards said, okay, you can have him for free. So
which means they could make the money off your fights?
Yeah. So what happens is I don't have to pay for gym fees. What happens now is I can stay at the camp for free. They're going to feed me twice a day, and then they're going to train me for free. The only thing is, every time that I fight, I give them 50% of my prize money. So they're thinking, okay, so the more we train you and the more that we show you and the better you become, the more fights that you win, the more money you make, the more money we profit. So and then what happened was, I'd won my first 5 fights straight, and I was doing okay, but I was only making 1,000 baht, 2,000 baht. It was only $50 a fight, so there was nothing. And then I've came back to Australia for, I thought my 6 months was done. That was a cool trip. Now it's time to think about getting a career or washing dishes or doing something to pass the time. And then the camp rang my Thai sponsor, Richard, and they said, hey, look, that 5 fights, 5 wins, I think could potentially have a big future here in Thailand. Would you send him back again? So Richard rings me, hey, do you want to go back to Thailand? It's like, oh, yeah. He goes, this time, instead of 6 months, I want you to promise me 1 year. A year? Really?
Sounds like a great mentor, this guy.
Yeah, real. Well,
really pushing you.
But if you come back after 6 months, me and you are done again, it's like, I can handle a year, that's no worry. I can sleep on the floor, that was it. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you. So my living conditions, I'm sleeping on a wooden floor, but my shower was a basin with a plastic container. So I'd use a plastic container, I'd wet myself, I'd use a soap, and I'd wet myself off, and the water just runs straight outside into the drain. For our toilet was a hole in the ground, like a porcelain hole in the ground, and then you have to squat over, which is normal. The only thing is no toilet paper. So you use the same plastic tub to pour into your hand to try and wipe off excess feces. and then for your toothbrush, so you have to use the same plastic container to pour the water into your hand so you can wash your mouth out after you brush your teeth. And then you're sharing this one plastic container with 10 other boxes as well. So and then when you eat on the floor as well. So everyone gets a plate of rice, and I'll put 4 or 5 different dishes in the center with the chicken or vegetables or fish, and then you sit in the center, and then you all eat at the same time. So instead of going, this is all mine, you go 1 spoonful at a time, and then it's like a community dinner. So there was no couches, there was no luxuries. It was just you were there to eat, sleep, and train. And sometimes it was 7 days a week. So it was very tough.
Hard training?
Yeah, we'd do 3 hours in the morning and 3 to 3.5 hours in the afternoon. And then sometimes when I was 7 days a week, it was crazy. Sometimes they'd let us have the Sunday off. So, and then after a fight, you're allowed 7 days off. So I'd jump on a bus, I'd go to a patio or just to speak English, and maybe have a hamburger,
Because you hadn't spoken English in months.
No, yeah. So at first I couldn't say a single word, and then I'd learn the Sawati cups and the bits and pieces, and then I started asking questions. I try and teach myself 5 words a day, and then once I started getting words, and then the Thais would send me on a quest to go to the shops and ask, I would like a bag of ice. And then I could change that to a bag of ice to something else, and then all of a sudden I could hold my own, and then all of a sudden I could hear the songs on the radio and I could start singing songs and I watched the TV soap operas and I was listening to the Thai movies. And it's like, and then all of a sudden I became one. I was sleeping on the floor, eating on the floor, speaking Thai, fighting Thai boxing. And I think the Thais really, because I was the first really Westerner to be full-time in Bangkok. So when I go to the stadiums, the Thais pretty much seen how hard I was working and fighting and winning, and they took me in as one of their own. So after so many years, I just became one of them pretty much. And then it was pretty cool because after one of the big tournaments, the promoter presented me with this jacket, and it was I think I'm the only Westerner to receive this certain accolade, and it was like a thank you for becoming one of us, for not just being a fighter but for being a white Thai.
Wow.
So yeah, it was so humbling. It was so cool.
What are the Thai people like? Like if you had to explain it to someone what Thai people are like, what the Thai culture is like, what is it?
The Thais are the most friendliest, giving, amazing, generous people that you'll ever meet until you poke the bear. And then once you poke the bear, then they become the most evilest, sadistic, ruthless. Don't make Thais angry. Yeah, there's certain customs that you should abide by, and then if you're always polite and you're always Sawati, you're always a Y, but you never look down on them as a lot of Westerners. They used to drive me crazy because I felt like I was one of them, and then when I go to the Western areas, people would be rude, or just because they're coming from a first world country, speaking to they'll treat them like dirt, and but then the Thais would take it, and then once they push them past that point, and Thais don't street fight, they shoot, they stab, they bottle, they iron bar, and they fight in, they look after their own. So it's
you don't get the pleasure of a street fight.
No.
Okay.
No,
that's for.
Well, look at their
sport.
national sport. Their national sport's fighting.
Right.
So and then it's I learned very fast that everyone's my friend, and and then I was lucky too because the being Buddhist. It doesn't matter if you're the king of Thailand or if you're the janitor. I'm going to speak to you exactly the same way. I'm not upper class, or we're the same. So I learned that very early. That there's
And is it the Buddhism you think that just keeps everybody kind of in that zone, in that gelled zone? Because I noticed that as well. Like nobody honks their horn in Bangkok, and the traffic's so bad, but there's this general calmness there.
It's all about karma. It's all about if I'm a good guy, hopefully good things will happen to me in the future.
Okay.
But if I'm that guy that's things come.
But don't cross them, and it can get nasty.
Things come back.
Did you ever have to get cross with some Westerners and say you got to stop that or you got to cool that off?
I politely asked. I'll tell you a story. So there was one time there was these Westerners walking through the city. It was probably 12 at night. They had these outdoor restaurants. And I was with my Thai friends, and one of them was a police officer. And what happens, he would go and clock on, but then he'd come and hang out with us because there was no real structure where he had to be anywhere. And he's in his uniform, and we're drinking whiskey. And these foreigners just come out of nowhere, and they walk on the streets and hi. And I think they were Dutch. So they come and sit down with us, and they were talking, and then we're sharing the whiskeys. And then for some reason, one of the Westerners leaned over, and he touched the policeman's head. And I don't know if you know Thai culture, but their head's very sacred. You never touch their heads. And then we're talking and joking, and about 30 minutes had passed. And then the policeman was just sipping on his drink, but not saying anything, and he looked quite angry. And then out of nowhere, he whispered to me, tell the Dutch guy there that if he touches my head again, I'm gonna shoot him here on the spot. Like he sat on it for half an hour before he finally released the just boiling. And it's like, oh, mate, just want to let you know. Yeah, it's just crazy how instead of just sitting there and then he let it just build and he couldn't handle it anymore. So yeah, they're very crazy people.
Right.
Yeah.
But it can kind of boil underneath the surface, and then when it comes out, it gets ugly.
Yes.
Because they're humans at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Human nature. Some things will come out. So.
Yes.
Okay, so you trained at this camp. You spent a year here now. What happened at the end of that, and what was your kind of greatest moment in Thailand?
So luckily, well, not luckily. So I've had one of my fights. So I've gone to Pattaya for a week, and I've come back, and then what had happened? All the other boxers had ran away. Because they have this thing where a lot of mafia is involved, and sometimes they want to help influence guys losing so they can bet on the other guy. So one of the fighters, he must have started spending money, and then the boss is like, where are you getting this money from? If I find out that you're getting paid under the table to do something that you shouldn't do, you're probably gonna wish you were probably not want to die. So this kid's freaked out, and then he's talked all the other fighters into running away with him that night. So I've come back, and then there was only the trainers, a pad holder, and the superstar that was at the camp. His name was Sang Tanoi. He's nicknamed the Deadly Kisser. So I was like, where is everyone? Oh, all the fighters ran away. So that they had the superstar and myself to survive on. So they need to make me as good as I could to try and make as much money, because there's only two of us making income for like a whole family now. So now the superstar, he's fighting the best of the best. So he needs a boxing partner, a grappling partner, a sparring partner, and there was no one else in the camp besides me to help getting fit. So I was thrown under the bus almost to grapple and spar. And let's say, for instance, we're boxing sparring, we put the 18-ounce gloves on, and we're going for it and doing about 80%, and then the Sang Ten would just stop. He just sort of give me half a shove. He said, if you're not going 100%, don't waste my time. Either get out or let's go. And then it's like, oh, okay. So I was like 100%. And then every single day, I was that guy. It's like, in Thai, you'd hear him say, why are you here? If you're not going to give 100, why? If you can't train harder than you trained yesterday, go home.
Continue watching this fascinating conversation for free by clicking on the link below to visit our website, learn from the best minds in the world, and connect with a community of passionate people building the best versions of themselves. Just click on the link below, and I'll see you on the inside.
If you have a gut feeling, follow your gut. Yeah, it's a gut feeling for a reason.
When you think of the word successful, who comes to mind?
George St. Pierre.